This is reposted.
Okay, Mr. Keller, you know that I love a great conversation. Today's quote comes from an article in The Atlantic, How to End a Conversation Without Making Up an Excuse. Here's the quote. In this regard, people generally have a poor sense of timing. Conversations almost never ended with both conversants wanted them to, concluded the authors of a study published earlier this month that asked people about recent interactions with loved ones, friends, and strangers. Just a general overview. When you have a conversation, when we used to do that in parties and settings, did you feel like your conversations ended at the right time?
Yeah, I did because I feel like I got a good sense of timing, or at least I think I do. But it kind of depends on what setting you're in. Like, if you're at a work event, like it's easier for me to be like, all right, I got to move on to do work. Or if you're in a work setting or with friends, maybe I lingered a little bit too long because the saying is, if you don't spot the fool at the table, it's you. And so maybe I got everything I wanted out of the conversation, and the person was biting their tongue trying to get me to leave. But do you feel like you're in and out, or what's your deal?
Well, I think that I enjoy having conversations with people, but I think I wish they were all mostly 4 minutes shorter. And that's why I resonated with this article. I think we're all thinking if you're at a parent teacher conference hanging out with a teacher, or you're at a mixer, or you're at a soccer game, you're like, that was fun to meet that person. I wish the conversation lasted 3 minutes less.
Not friend of the show, Greg Vanden Bosch. I was with him one time, and he did something that I envy him in a lot of ways. But we were out at a bar talking to some people, and in the middle of a sentence, he's like, "I'm done with this," and he walked away. I could never do that. I think the one time I have like not known how to end it, or in recent memory, is when we interview people on this show and we arbitrarily set a timeline for them to for episodes to be, and when we go past that, I get lots of anxiety. I'm like, I don't know how to end this, especially if you get someone that's long-winded. But yeah, it's there's, I guess, different strategies on how to get out of a conversation.
Yeah, I got 1,000 of them, right? I'll do oh, I got to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Oh, let me get something to drink. Oh, the wife signaled me, and you go and you move on. Like there's a gazillion different ways to do it. But I think the crux of this article is like, how do you do it honestly? Can you just say, hey, it was nice to meet you. We're done now.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably everyone's going to be happier long term if you do that. It might be a moment of uncomfort in that moment, but you're like, hey, that was probably done. Something that I appreciate about my relationship with my parents is that, like, I talk to a lot of people and, like, oh, I got to call my mom. It's going to be 45 minutes, and she's going to want to, the first 10 minutes are going to be, why don't you ever call? We kind of have a standing rule that if I want to talk to them, they're happy to talk anytime, call them. They're not going to call me, because calling me when I'm not in a good mood is not a fun person to talk to. And I might have a 2 minute conversation with them. I'm like, all right, well, I'm at where I need to be. I'm going to go. And then we just end it. So sometimes Nicole laughs at me. I'm like, all right, well, I'm done. And they're like, okay. And so it always feels better when you do that, but you can get in a moment of uncomfort.
Well, you literally are doing that with your parents, like the people that know you the
Right.
best in the wide world. How do you do that with someone you just met at a
Oh,
social function?
I can't. I was at a social function recently, and there was people I wanted to get talking to, but there was people I was talking to that I don't know that well, and I was like, how do I get out of this? Like, I don't have a specific. I mean, that's my thing at parties that I don't understand how to do. Is like, I need to go do something else, but like, we're in a confined space where it's like they're gonna know that like I don't have something to do. Like, I just want to be like, okay, and sidestep away. But
Bro, dude, that's when you like fake smoking. You're like, man, I gotta get a smoke. You just go outside and like sit on the porch. Like
yeah,
there's
well,
just a million excuses to get out of conversations.
maybe I need to pick up smoking to get out of conversation. I've never tried that one before.
Sort of back to your spot, right? I have found it easy in a social setting. Go to the bathroom, get a glass of wine. Oh, the wife's calling me. There's 1,000 of ways to get out of conversation. But it's the harder ones, like in a family setting, when you are with someone all weekend at a rental or at your in-laws. You can't. How do you get out of those conversations
Yeah,
where you're
I feel like,
strapped?
especially when you're not having a shared thing to do. Like, I think about just generically when you're at with family. Like, if you're not eating or you're not doing an event, those are when the conversations are most awkward. I think about hanging out with friends, like you're at someone's house and like you finish your drink and there's that moment of like, should we have another one? And you're like, you probably shouldn't have another one, but you like talking. So you're like, yeah, sure. Let's have another one. Like having a shared activity to do helps things, I think, move along.
Is there any chance that conversations are different out of the pandemic? Like we're at a thing where we're like, you know what, we're all just going to be completely honest these days, and we're not going to.
No. I mean, I don't think so. I think people have adjusted to this new normal, and then whenever things change again, people are going to quickly adapt. And I think the path of least resistance is what people want the most. And being brutally honest or being like, I don't like talking to you or I want to move on, like, is uncomfortable. And I think for the most part, people aren't willing to do that with people they don't know that well.
I feel like you way more than me, but like the Hollywood conversation, right? You're at a party somewhere and you're talking to someone and they're looking for the next person that they should be talking to. They're looking for a producer. So you're like having a conversation, but they're looking like over your shoulder past you.
Yeah, that happens like when they understand what you're like, they feel you out and you're like, all right, I know what I can get from this person. I can
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Right when I moved to San Francisco, before I had a job, my friend invited me to a networking event at AT&T Park where the Giants play. And before the game, they had a mixer with his law school. And I was talking to this girl and she's like, oh, what do you do? And like trying to make light of it. And I was like, oh, I'm gainfully unemployed. She's like, huh. And literally walked away. So maybe she had it all figured out.
I mean, seriously, if she had it figured out. It's so funny. In San Francisco, it's like business. In Hollywood, it's acting. It's like, and then this is the worst one. Is church, right? I mean, you'll be at like church and afterwards, and you're like, dude, we're at church, and you're looking over my shoulder to see who you should talk to next. Like, it's so antithetical, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of human nature, and yeah, and then maybe it also is one-sided because if someone's looking towards someone else, once they find that person they want to be talking to, that person probably is going to be looking towards another person, just because it's like if you're not on an equal footing in the conversation, it might go on longer or shorter than you want it to.
Just full disclosure, I feel like people they want way shorter conversations with me than they get because I've got like this litany of things I can talk to people about. Like if I find out what your favorite sports team is or where you grew up, I just have like arcane knowledge and I can make conversations go way longer than they should. So as we're having this conversation, I'm like, oh, I bet most people are like, yeah, I could have used about 10 minutes less of that Larry guy.
Well, I think your move though is you ask questions about them, and that helps it
Yeah.
go on longer. You don't start off with, "Hey, I'm from Whittier. Do you know that the best barbecue is on Sepulveda? Down in Whittier." So, like, I think that's one way to keep people more engaged is to engage talking about them.
Yeah, but I still think even they're still like, yeah, I could have used 10 minutes less than that guy.
Well, if you had enough of Larry, please reach out. You can find us at Reposted Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm Andrew Keller for the Chatty Cathy saying thanks for stopping by.